Hey everyone, Dan here. We are Sunday night, April 11th, just before the trading week kicks off tomorrow, and wanted to look at 5 stocks that I think could be primed for a reversal after a beatdown that they've been taking in the last weeks or months. Before we get into it, if you enjoy the videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And if you share these things anywhere, like on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, please grab a video that you like and share it there. I would greatly appreciate that as well. All right, so let's kick things off with TWST Bioscience, TWST. It's been beaten down really savagely since, about January 21st? Started this big downtrend. It went from 214 down to 102. So it was at less than half of its price at one point. And, it's caught in this red down channel, obviously. And pretty interestingly, for a stock that lost that much value, it sustained a really clean channel. It didn't have this, just incredibly abrupt drop off. And so, to me, the advantage there is it didn't take a typical sort of pump and dump kind of chart where it just, we see those all the time actually, where they draw a bunch of frowny faces, but they pump up really fast and they drop off just as fast. This, to me, looks like a more sustained downtrend, which also often means that the stock itself has some innate value, and it's been sort of systematically sold off, and I'm sure in a lot of instances panic sold to contribute to this drop off, but that there is something there in the stock itself. So what I'm going to be looking for is basically as systematic of a trend reversal and a clawback. And so, it just recently broke the channel on April 8th. So it held that from, I guess we want to include these dates, mid-January. So it held it for about, 10 weeks or so, 10, 11 weeks. And so it's just breaking out of it now. So it needs to continue that momentum so it doesn't do this kind of motion where it pops out and then comes right back down and just keeps hugging the top of the channel anyway, which might as well mean that it is in the channel. And so as long as it can do that, my ideal scenario would be that it establishes along this green uptrend and works its way, up into the 170s by end of May, and just sort of takes it slow and steady. And that would build itself a channel, if it gets a few more days off of that trend line. So there's that. And then the other thing to look for that is bullish is that, maybe coming up to fill this gap, which would get it all the way up to about 190 almost, 189.5. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, the gap, the break of the channel, the uptrend line that could develop. And then also on the MACD, you'll see, the red valleys are diminishing. So here they were sort of holding steady more or less. And then this one was the biggest. And then that sort of petered out and it made a second mini valley that was less deep than the previous one. And then this one, barely came into the negative at all. So I think if this green can continue to grow and surpass this previous hill, then that'll be a good sign. But worst case, if it keeps sort of consolidating, at least it gets itself out of the channel and then gives itself a chance to rebound. Also, the RSI is at 51, so mid-range, and so sort of nothing good, nothing bad there, but in sort of fair buy territory as far as the RSI would go, in my opinion. Okay, so I think that's what we're looking for. Oh, I should mention this 106.04. So that to me is really strong support, as you see in these areas here, and then even drawing back to these areas here. So being that it most recently bounced off of that area, I'm hoping that gives it some potential for momentum up. All right, CPNG. This is a pretty fresh one, but I wanted to take a look at it anyway because it is forming this sort of slow and steady, nice and easy channel. And it's toward the bottom of the channel right now. And, the RSI is at 71, but I would take that with a huge grain of salt because it doesn't have a lot of price history to take to factor in. So, it started up here on its IPO day at 100. So it's just a factor of like it's been coming down almost the entire time since then, and now it's just reaching its way to 71. So I don't think that the RSI in this case is actually that big of a factor. And then, we're just developing our first valley and our first hill. But to me, this wasn't sort of like an overbearing hill. So this to me looks like it could just take a small dip into the red and then have a nice high bullish hill out of there. And that would sort of align with the idea that it kind of bounces off the bottom of this channel and then runs itself up toward the top, which, in the coming days and weeks would get it like into the mid 50s. So there'll be a really good percentage return if it can sustain this channel. That's what I'm looking for from CPNG. SENS has broken out of this channel, which it had been in since mid-February, and then broke out at the beginning of March, and then has just sort of like been kind of fizzling, fading just ever so slightly down to its current 234 mark. The reason I'm looking for a bounce here is because this zone that we have charted here, this 233, this has so much previous bouncing off of it, and then even like coming back to this area here, that's where the building started for this big push up. So we might see sort of something forming that resembles this picture here, which sort of establishes support, bounces up, gets itself some new support, and then comes up for recent highs. But that's what I'm looking for on that. The MACD is basically like smoothing out here on the negative side, and so the yellow is about to cross over the blue, or the MACD is about to cross over the signal line, which is what we would take as a potential buy signal. And so I'm looking for that to happen. And then the RSI is just at a measly 39, so that's really, really close to just straight up oversold territory. That could give us another good reason to bounce off of this 233, 234 area. LI, this has also started to try to push out of the channel. I think the biggest danger for it here is that, it tried to make a run for it here, and then just like we were talking about on TWST, I think it was, or was it CPNG? Let me see. On TWST, I remember we said we don't want it to come out and then sort of like just come down and keep following the upper bound of the down channel. So same thing here. So that's its biggest risk right now, is that it comes down and then starts to just follow still down the upper bound of this channel. But what I'm hoping happens here is that this 2185 has a ton of recent support, and so looking for that to provide a bounce area and keep it out of the channel. That would obviously keep it out of the channel. And the MACD, I would be looking for it to bounce back upward, to not really dip into the red. So we see it's kind of flat on the green side. The red is diminishing, so the bearish sentiment is diminishing. So I look for, if a red zone appears tomorrow, I would look for it to be very, very brief, or just that it doesn't happen at all, and we start to push up with a nice bullish green hill. The RSI in this puppy is just at 41, so pretty good territory there. And, I think that the other thing is, there was this gap over here that had been filled, so that's old news, but that would account for all of the price action down to about 24.24. So then we can always just kind of say, okay, so it pushed down to 24 to fill a gap, and then it just got drawn into the downward momentum, and there was some additional selling off that happened. So if it does have a tendency to fill gaps, this one still probably has to be filled up here. And so this would bring us up to like 41, which would be a huge pump up from its current 22. And so that would leave a lot of upside. So those are things that I'm looking for with Lee, but that could be a good one, a really good percentage gain. TDOC, this one is sort of extra juicy in my opinion. So a few things happening. One, keep an eye on the MACD, because the red is growing, but it's just so few and far between that it's almost kind of hard to tell. The green, unless we get a big push up here, then this is also going to be kind of diminishing. So that would put us into sort of like a consolidation territory. But to me, the most interesting thing with TDOC, you see this slight green line here. This is a bullish divergence. So here, as the stock was making lower lows, in other words, it was going down, the sentiment of the MACD was rising. You see it here. It was at that point, it was, come on mouse, move. It was at 14.8. And this is, this is negative, so it's minus 14.8. And then when it came up to this spot, which was lower on the price, it was minus 11.8. So it rose about 3 points in order for that down price action to happen. So it's slight, but it is very recent and could indicate that there's a bullish move about to happen. Also, the RSI right now is just at 40. It's at this tremendous support zone. You see this white box, like, big support there, support, 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 support. So long-standing support at this level, slight bullish divergence, gap to fill up here, which would get us up to about 266, 267, and a low RSI number for the time being. So those are things I'm looking for from TDOC. It obviously has a lot of potential room to run on the upside, as it was at 308 just on 2/16, so February 16th. But that could be a good one. So be keeping a close eye on this one and all of these. But that'll do it for this video. Again, thanks so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you frequently watch these videos, or if you want to know when the next videos come out, you'll just get automatically notified. And thanks so much. I will see you in the next video.